Perhaps like me, the last couple of weeks, you were watching the Olympics in Paris, seeing the marvels of all the incredible athletes, and of course celebrating Israel's victories, America's victories, and all those personal accomplishments. Olympians train for years in order to compete in an event that oftentimes lasts just a few seconds. Days, months, years, practically a lifetime of intense practice and discipline are the basis of an athlete's training regimen that's filled with rituals, special diets, and special clothes. Judaism is actually not that different. We have our own special clothes. Our talit may not be as aerodynamic or form-fitting. Our kippot need to be clipped down, but we certainly have a special diet, kashrut, our laws of keeping kosher. We have our rituals galore from our 613 mitzvot and so many more minhagim and customs. One Olympic event that gets less fanfare, or at least did so in Paris, than perhaps gymnastics or swimming, but one of my personal favorites is weightlifting. I marvel at how much strength one must build up to lift massive weights, raising that heavy bar high above one's head. But the training begins with the same simple bench press in the gym that you and I can work on. Now, we may not excel like Jewish famous Olympians Ali Raceman, Mark Spitz, or even our hometown Cleveland hero of blessed memory, David Berger, the teen Cleveland weightlifter who joined the Israeli team and was murdered in Munich in 1972 by Palestinian terrorists. Even if we aren't weightlifters in Judaism, we do have a way to raise the bar, to lift ourselves up every single time that we eat. And it's benching in Yiddish or reciting Birkat Hamazon, our grace after meals. Our Parsha this week begins by presenting us an Olympic challenge, not just to bench press more, but to press benching more. A way to gain strength in the gym is not simply by increasing the amount of weight we lift each time, but increasing the reps, the repetitions, the number of times that we do a repetitive moment. The same guiding principle works for us with Judaism and our spirituality. The more reps, the more times we take to pause and to say thank you to God for our food, for our bounty, we gain more appreciation for the good in our lives and raise ourselves closer to Hashem. The goal of this exercise, adding blessing to our lives, is to have an attitude of gratitude with mouths filled with platitudes. This summer, our clergy visited our synagogue campers at Camp Wise, at JCC day camps, and Rabbi Foster even went up to Canada for a week at Camp Ramah. For us, these camp visits are a highlight of our summer. To see our young people filled with such ruach spirit at Jewish camp. We heard about them swimming in the lake, water skiing, horseback riding, overnight trips to Cedar Point, color wars at Camp Ramah known as Yom Sport and at Camp Wise as Maccabiyah. But for us during our visits, the campers' Jewish spirit showed most in the dining hall, the Chadar Ochel, after a delicious camp meal. Maybe. We're still waiting. If you've ever been to the dining hall, and it happens every single time that we visit, including this summer, every single camper joins together in an energized Birkat Hamazon, or Birkat as they call it. They bench by standing up on the benches in the dining hall, singing, pounding on tables very, very loudly, showing their joy at being Jewish and their joy in prayer, just like we've done today. As Jews, we are advised to recite 100 blessings every single day. That might seem like a lot, but of those 100, how many are actually specialized or required according to the Torah? Of the 100 that we say every day, how many does the Torah say that we actually have to say? The answer is one. Just Birkat Hamazon. Every other prayer that we say during our day are prayers that the rabbis say we're supposed to say to reach this magic number of 100. But Birkat Hamazon, which we read in this week's Parsha Ekev, is the only one that's actually mandated by the Torah. We read today, V'achalta v'savata u'verachta et Adonai Elohecha asher al ha'aretz hatova asher natan lach. When you have eaten your fill and you are satisfied, give thanks to God for the good land which God has given to you. The Maggid of Mezritz, the Hasidic rabbi, teaches that Birkat Hamazon should be said with greater kavanah than even the Amidah, our devotional prayer. Why does the commandment we find right here, in the 40th and final year of the Israelites wandering the desert? Did the Israelites eat up until now? We're at the end of the Torah, you know. Haven't the people been eating all their time? We know that God has been providing them with the manna, that miraculous food from heaven, but shouldn't they have given thanks for manna also? This is what the rabbis say. Moses reminds the Jewish people that perhaps when they enter the land, which is coming up very soon to the land of Israel, and they start providing for their own nourishment, when they work the land, when they plant the crops, when they harvest the grain, when they grind the flour, when they knead the dough, when they bake their bread, that the food is thanks to their own hard work, and they no longer have to acknowledge God. Moses reminds us that just being fed from divine manna, we must also recognize that our bounty today is thanks to God. Our grace after meals that we recite is fairly long. It's a 4-part blessing attributed to some of our greatest biblical Jewish leaders, Moses, Joshua, King David, and King Solomon, with a focus on the land of Israel, though it can be recited in my favorite shortened form, Rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub, yay God. So who was the actual first person to recite Birkat Hamazon? Anyone know? Was anyone there? Aaron, is that what I heard? Aaron, okay, good guess. Yeah, anyone else? Who? Adam. Ooh, I like, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, the rabbis point to the first Jew, Abraham. The rabbis say that Abraham and Sarah were the first, even though we're learning about this thing called Birkat Hamazon all the way in at the end of the Torah, many, many years, many generations after Abraham and Sarah. They say that Abraham and Sarah, who were known for their haknasat orchim, their hospitality, world-class hospitality, 5-star hotel that they offered in the desert, that whenever any passersby would come, they would welcome them into their tent and they would feed them. After their guests ate, the guests would thank their host for welcoming them and providing a delicious meal for them. And Abraham and Sarah would say this, "Did you eat what was mine? No, you ate what belongs to God." And he would say to them, "Bless, it's time to say a blessing." And he'd say, "Blessed is the eternal God for whose produce we have eaten." Similarly, after a nice meal, perhaps like me, your parents taught you to say, "Thank you." We thank our ultimate host, the provider of all, God, and that is the essence of our blessing. The mystical rabbi known as the Ari, Isaac Luria, teaches that food actually provides both physical nourishment and spiritual nourishment. And are there any dietitians here that can confirm that? I'm not sure. The physical nourishing elements of food sustains our bodies, but the spiritual element sustains our souls. And only when we recite Birkat Hamazon, the rabbi says, then we unleash that spiritual nourishment to quench our spiritual hunger. You shall eat and you shall be satisfied, and then you shall be blessed and thankful. Does anyone know how much you need to eat to be satisfied? Because actually the Torah here says, you shall eat, you shall be satisfied, and you shall bless. Does it differ per person how much you eat to be satisfied? What? 1 egg. Yeah, Nancy has studied this. Nancy has studied the halacha. Yeah. I don't know. How much do you have to eat to be full? Yeah? Ooh. like that. I like that. I like now we're getting into the gradations of what does it mean to be satisfied. Yeah. Other thoughts? A kazayat. Again, yeah, Ruth, like Nancy, are giving a, now they're debating what the rabbis say. We have a beitza here and we have a zayat here. Right? The rabbis don't do it based on what you eat. They actually do it based on the measurement of what you eat. And the rabbis say, do you have to eat an egg's worth of? In particular here, they're talking about bread. Or do you eat an olive's worth of bread? Have you ever eaten an olive's worth of a piece of bread? The size of an olive. Would that satisfy you? No? So it's interesting, right, that the rabbis say the minimum amount needed to eat to be full is the size of an olive. Now, maybe Israeli olives were a little bit bigger, I don't know. But I can't imagine that they were that big. Right? So what does it mean that to be satisfied is just this much? You might know that there's this teaching in Pirkei Avot, which says, Ezehu Ashir, who is a rich and wealthy person? The answer there is Hasomek Bechelko, one who is happy with their portion. So perhaps this can help sort of give us an answer to the fact that we're saying only this much bread is going to satisfy us. When we recite Birkat Hamazon and feel a sense of satisfaction after a meal, we should actually be reminded of those who are lacking in our community and our world. Not everyone is able to have full shelves. Not everyone is able to go shopping every single day and every single week and fill their shelves and eat to their fill. Halavai, it should be that everyone is able to. But if we see a person in need, if we hear of a crisis, it's our responsibility to help to ensure that they have at least minimal food. And that's actually what our own tzedek group is doing. We have a new food insecurity committee that's working to plan educational opportunities, advocacy, and volunteer programs around the issue of hunger. That's why our Teen Hineni trip this winter will focus on homelessness and hunger, traveling to Los Angeles. That's why in a few weeks we're starting our high holiday food drive through our Chesed committee. That's why on our Israel mission this summer we volunteered packing food for elderly Holocaust survivors in Israel. We visited the Shuva rest stop near the border with Gaza, a respite, a refuge place for Israeli soldiers. We brought them hot meals and baked goods. And that's why for the last 43 weeks, the last 323 days since October 7th, I've been thinking about what those hostages have been eating. Have they even been given a kazayat? Have they even been given an olive's worth of a portion? How are they able to survive on what they've been given? So when we think about what satisfies us, I don't know if that means we need to take out and talk to a dietitian and talk to a physician and determine what that satisfaction is. And the rabbis, actually not the rabbis, right? We actually say that we don't feel satisfied from a meal until later, about half an hour after we eat. So what does it mean that we feel satisfied from what we eat? So, if the Rolling Stone says, I don't get no satisfaction, and the same thing from Hamilton, that famous song, Satisfaction, is I'll never be satisfied. How can we find satisfaction in this world? How can we do it with saying benching? My hope is that we help satisfy others. We help by opening up our hearts and making sure that those in need, those who are in captivity, those who aren't able to fend for themselves, that we help them reach a level of satisfaction. May we all find satisfaction and joy in our lives, not just by blessing God and thanking our own bounty, not just by bench pressing, but by going for the gold ourselves, by living a life of meaning, by helping others. And that's how we can press benching, how we can thank God by sharing our bounty, sharing what we have. Shabbat Shalom.